Videos uploaded by the Junkyard News are helped in part by viewers just like you. Don't want to miss a video or a story? Make sure to check us out and like us on Facebook at The Junkyard News.
This video was intended to inform and educate the public.
Well, a Richmond police officer's name is now on a list of no officers really want to be on. It's called the Brady list. An officer can wind up on it if a prosecutor says they lied to the public, this time about a brutal murder.
Hello everybody, and thank you for tuning in to today's news video here on the Junkyard News. In today's video, we have the assistant police chief, who is also the public information officer, who just found himself put on the Brady list when court documents show that he maliciously and intentionally lied to news agencies and the public regarding a double homicide. Now, this story comes out of Richmond, Indiana, where the Richmond Police Department is being accused of lying to the media after claims that 2 murder victims found inside trash bags and dumped in a river were not their confidential informants. In a letter obtained by news agencies, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office says that Assistant Chief of Police Adam Blanton gave factually inaccurate and verifiably false information to news media. The letter says that Blanton, who serves as RPD's public information officer, has been placed on the Brady list. Now, the Brady list is a public record list of police officials accused of misconduct, misinformation, and other impeachable offenses. It's maintained by the U.S. Prosecutor's Office to ensure fair trials and prevents officers with questionable integrity from testifying in court proceedings. Now, this filing does stem from a September double murder investigation in which 2 Richmond residents were shot, stabbed, and strangled before being stuffed inside trash bags, driven to Fort Wayne, and thrown into a river.
The Wayne County prosecutor says the assistant chief here at the Richmond Police Department lied to the public when he said 2 murder victims were not Richmond confidential informants. The Richmond Police Department, though, says they fundamentally disagree with that decision. Adam Blanton is now on the Brady list. Indiana University law professor Jody Madeira says it's not something officers want to be on. It all started when Matthew Johnson and Christine Dixon were murdered and found in a Fort Wayne river in September. This man, Dominique Washington, was arrested for the killings. Court docs filed by the Fort Wayne Police Department backing up Washington's arrest said Johnson and Dixon were confidential informants for Richmond police.
Drug dealer who uses the name Nico has since been charged for their deaths. So here's the detail. Christina Dixon and Matthew Johnson were found passed away on September 20th by Fort Wayne police after their bodies were recovered from the St. Mary's River on the edge of downtown near a park. Their bodies were found inside trash bags and their passings were ruled homicides. Court documents show that Dixon had passed by strangulation and suffocation while Johnson passed from a gunshot wound and a stab wound. Detectives soon learned the 2 victims had been reported missing on September 19th by Richmond police, 1 day before their bodies were found. After collaborating with Richmond police on an investigation into the pair's last known whereabouts, Dominique Nico Washington was identified as a suspect. And police spoke to several witnesses, including Dixon's 9-year-old son, who saw the victims getting into a car with a man matching Washington's description the day that they disappeared. Court documents state that Washington was a known drug dealer in the Richmond area and claim he had connections to both Johnson and Dixon. A probable cause affidavit for Washington's arrest was filed on September 24th, and he was soon booked into jail on 4 felony murder charges. In the court documents, Fort Wayne police wrote that both Dixon and Johnson were confidential informants for the Richmond police and said their information had recently led to a drug bust connected to Washington's operation. But Richmond police later denied this. In a Facebook post on Richmond Police Department's official Facebook page, Officer Adam Blanton said the information was incorrect and claimed that the 2 were never informants by the police department. The next day, Blanton seemingly walked back on these statements in an email to news agencies. However, regarding Dominique Washington, we can verify that both Johnson and Dixon were not working in any informant capacity. In fact, Dominique and Johnson appeared to be acquaintances. The officer then stated that we are actively investigating how this information entered the probable cause affidavit for the Fort Wayne Police Department. We contacted them to alert them of this confusion. Blanton went on to blame miscommunication and mistaken assumptions from an agency over 100 miles away from Richmond for the mistake. He said it seems an officer mentioned Dixon and Johnson's potential involvement in a separate investigation so as to be helpful, which was then misinterpreted and published in court documents. But now, the local prosecutor's office is stepping in and saying that these claims by the assistant chief are false. You see, prosecuting attorney Michael Shipman sent a letter to Richmond Police Chief Kyle Weatherly, telling him one of his officers was being placed on the county's Brady list. That officer was Assistant Chief and Public Information Officer Adam Blanton. The letter claimed Blanton made two statements containing verifiably false information regarding Johnson and Dixon's confidential informant status with the Richmond Police Department. Specifically, the prosecutor says both Dixon and Johnson gave information to Richmond Police that was then used to apply for a search warrant. This matches what Fort Wayne Police put in their arrest affidavit, implying the search warrant led to a drug bust connected to Washington. Furthermore, the prosecutor claims that on July 24th, he approved Dixon to purchase drugs as a confidential informant for the Richmond Police Department. Now, the second false statement listed in the letter is Blanton's email to media outlets. Blanton tried to correct it by saying the victims may have been informants at some point, but were not as it related to specific individuals, i.e. Washington. Blanton first stated another officer gave him incorrect information, assuming the information he received was incorrect. He has a duty as a PIO to verify the accuracy before disseminating the information to the public and news agencies. He then shifted to state he meant it as to specify individuals. Shipman ends the letter by saying Blanton is welcome to submit a written response to the letter and the Brady List filing. Richmond police have since denied the claims in the prosecutor's letter and has stated that the Richmond Police Department is aware of the reports being made against a member of its administration, and the fact that Prosecutor Shipman's decision to include him on a purported Brady List and the erroneous characterization of the events regarding the decision was absurd. Well, you know there could be several reasons why a police officer might lie about the identity of an informant who was subsequently murdered. Some motivations could be public image. If an informant's death could lead to negative publicity or damage the reputation of the police force, as in a botched operation or of a failure to protect the informant, an officer may attempt to lie to downplay or cover up these failures to preserve the integrity and credibility of the department. Now, of course, there's always incompetence and mistakes. You know, sometimes officers might lie or misrepresent the truth to cover up their own errors or oversights, especially if they failed to protect an informant properly or were involved in a mishandling of a case. There might even be external pressure to lie, such as political influence, legal concerns, or pressure from higher-ups in the department. A higher-ranking official might instruct an officer to lie to protect the agency from legal consequences and public scrutiny. You ever heard the term snitches get stitches? Well, there you have it. But these didn't get stitches. They got a dirt nap. And now, this assistant police chief has found himself on the Brady List for lying about these two victims being confidential informants. Enjoy your time on the Brady List, buddy. Thanks again for watching this video by the Junkyard News. Be careful, people. You just never know. Remember, snitches get stitches, and your dealings with Leos could have you in our next video. Thanks again.
However, a letter sent from Wayne County Prosecutor Mike Shipman to Blanton and the Richmond Police Chief in October says Dixon and Matthew were in fact informants on the case. Shipman reveals he also authorized Dixon to purchase drugs as a confidential informant. The letter informed Blanton he was now on the county's Brady List. As for Dominique Washington, he's due for a jury trial in March for the murders of Christine Dixon and Matthew Johnson.